Have you ever wondered if the most important ideas in history were never taught in school but were passed down in secret? Well, today on The Explainer, we're diving into that hidden stream of thought, the fascinating and often really misunderstood world of esotericism.
So let's start with a little thought experiment. Think about the world you experience every single day. Everything you see, everything you touch. What if all of that is just the surface? This idea, the belief that there's a deeper, hidden reality behind the one we see every day, that's the absolute core of esotericism. It's basically an invitation to look a little deeper.
Okay, so how does this actually work in practice? Well, at its heart, esotericism is all about a fundamental distinction between what's going on inside of us and what we see in the world outside.
You know, the name itself is a huge clue. Esoteric comes from the Greek word esoteros, which literally just means inner. So despite all the modern ideas about spooky rituals and secret societies, this is really about studying the hidden internal reality that makes everything on the outside tick. And this idea of an inner and outer reality, it pops up everywhere. In classic Islamic thought, for example, you have the zahir. That's the outer, visible shell of the world that's always changing. And then you have the batin, which is the inner, unchanging kernel of truth. One is the effect that we can all see, and the other is the hidden cause. Let me put it another way. Just think about all the different religions in the world. The outer forms, the rituals, the buildings, the rules, they're all different, and they change over time. But the inner truth they're all pointing towards? Well, esoteric thought says that truth is constant. It's universal.
So where did this way of thinking even come from? Well, the answer might just challenge one of the biggest stories we're all told about Western history, the so-called Greek miracle.
Yeah, we're often taught that philosophy just, poof, appeared with the ancient Greeks, the sudden explosion of pure reason. But the esoteric tradition suggests a really different story, that Greek philosophy wasn't an invention, it was a transmission.
And get this isn't some kind of modern reinterpretation. The Greeks themselves hinted at it. Even Plato, the father of Western philosophy, straight up credits Eastern sages for some of his biggest ideas in his dialogue Timaeus. He's pointing to a much older source of wisdom.
I mean, just look at a guy like Pythagoras. We all know him for his math theorem, right? But he spent over 2 decades studying in the wisdom schools of Egypt. And when he came back, he didn't just open a university for arguing. No, he founded a whole community, a complete way of life focused on transforming a person. We're talking spiritual hymns, specific diets, meditation, the whole 9 yards. For them, knowledge wasn't just an idea. It was something you lived. And it was all summed up in that maxim, know thyself and you will know God. This, of course, raises a huge question. If this ancient wisdom was the complete path to transformation, what on earth happened to it? How did we lose that holistic approach? Well, over time, a massive shift happened. Wisdom as a lived practice, a complete way of being, slowly got replaced by philosophy as just an intellectual exercise. The living, breathing traditions started to fade away, and what was left behind were just the written texts. The shell, you know, without the... The Sufi poet Mevlana, who you probably know as Rumi, told a story that explains this perfectly. It's the famous parable of the blind men and the elephant.
So one man touches the elephant's leg and says, "Aha, it's a tree." Another one feels the trunk and says, "Nope, it's a hose." Each of them is right about the little piece they're touching, but they're all completely wrong about the whole animal. And that right there is the esoteric critique of purely analytical thought. By breaking reality down and only focusing on the material bits and pieces, we risk completely missing the interconnected, living elephant in the room.
So if this holistic wisdom got fragmented in the West, did it just disappear? Not a chance. It was preserved and carefully passed down, a lot of the time in secret, on this amazing journey that would eventually bring it right back into Europe. You can literally trace this secret journey across centuries. It starts in the wisdom centers of ancient Egypt and Babylon, gets transmitted to Greece, and then, after Rome falls, it's preserved and deepened in the Islamic world, especially through Sufism. Then, during the Crusades, these ideas start to trickle back into Europe, and they eventually re-emerge during the Renaissance inside these influential secret societies like the Freemasons.
So why all the secrecy, you're probably wondering? Well, a big guiding principle was the old warning, don't cast your pearls before swine. Think about it. At a time when the church was pretty dogmatic and often persecuted new ideas, these groups had to become hermetic, which means sealed off. It was a way to protect these profound teachings from being twisted, corrupted, or just plain destroyed.
And that brings us right up to today. In our modern world, a lot of people feel a kind of deep dissatisfaction with a purely materialistic view of life. And this feeling has sparked this huge mainstream search for meaning, creating what you might call a spiritual marketplace.
But this has led to a really strange phenomenon. Profound Eastern teachings are discovered by Westerners, but they're often completely stripped from their traditional context. They get repackaged with new, trendy names, like the Enneagram, and sometimes they even get co-opted by corporations to try and make workers more productive.
Now, the critique from within these actual traditions is that this often leads to a pretty superficial kind of spirituality. It gets cut off from the rigorous master-disciple relationship that was always seen as essential for any real transformation. It basically turns a sacred path into just another consumer product.
So, after this whole journey through history, where does that leave us? How can we apply this understanding today? Well, the esoteric tradition itself suggests it all comes down to finding a really critical balance. See, an authentic tradition doesn't reject the outer world. It sees the shell, the rituals, the laws, the forms, as the necessary container that protects the kernel, which is the inner truth. The inner meaning gives life to the outer form, and that form provides structure and safety for the meaning. They're totally inseparable. You really can't have one without the other. The Sufi poet Yunus Emre probably put it best with this incredible line. He's reminding us that the whole esoteric journey isn't about finding something out there. It's about discovering the deep, true self that's been right here inside you all along. And that really brings us full circle, doesn't it? We live in an age where we are literally drowning in information. Facts and data are just a click away. But in that ocean of noise, how do we find the path back to genuine, transformative wisdom? Now that is a question worth reflecting on.
Please make sure to subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss an upload. And if you'd like to go the extra mile in supporting the channel, the join button is now live. Would you care to consider a 1-month sponsorship to enhance my operational efficiency? Your contribution is of paramount importance, as it enables the production of significantly higher quality content for your viewing pleasure. A modest gesture of $10 via the link in the profile is all that is required to sustain my systems.
If you would like to find out more about our bespoke meditation and hypnotherapy sessions, please do get in touch for a consultation. We create personalized affirmation meditations, tailored specifically to you.